Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Deep Thoughts. And today we are talking about Kimetsu no Yaiba episode 24, Rehabilitation Training. But hey, before we begin, as always, I want to give a big shout out to those of you who shared last week's video over on Twitter, namely at Shonenoji, at Kisasan98, and at JNTheo21. Thanks so much for sharing last week's video, you guys. It is super appreciated, and if you too would like to have your name shouted out in next week's Yaiba video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet, and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much, and I will be sure to shout your name out in next week's episode. Now, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and dig into this week's episode, and this week we kinda sorta have three things to talk about. The recovery section of the episode, the rooftop talk, and the shocking amount of jokes in this week's episode. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and go on there because I don't have a lot to say, but this did take up a good majority of the episode. That being the sheer amount of character-based humor in this week's episode. We get a lot of it, and it's genuinely really funny, in particular the Zenitsu stuff. Now, you guys all know that Zenitsu is my boy, and I care an extraordinary amount for my boy, so anytime I get to see him on screen, I am a happy camper. And I am positive that all the Zenitsu love in this week's episode maybe bugged some people, because he is at his most Zenitsuist that he possibly could be in this week's episode. He is off the wall, banana pants crazy, especially after he finds out what Tanjiro and Inosuke have been up to in the later parts of the episode. He is surprisingly incensed. He is absolutely furious with the two of them, and it breaks out into probably the most goofy, over-the-top Zenitsu scene I think we've gotten in the entire show so far. He straight up destroys Inosuke at one point. Not in an actual fight, but in a comedic, punch into the wall type moment. It is nuts. Likewise, Inosuke is played up mostly for laughs in the beginning part of the episode. His voice still hasn't quite recovered at the early bits of the episode, so he's still talking like this. Sorry for being sort of weak right now. My bad. Literally just still being I can't move. It hurts to breathe. And it sucks seeing Inosuke like that, but it does make for some, kind of sad but funny humor. It's genuinely pretty good. The stuff with Murata was good, and yeah, Murata's back. That was a surprise. I'll get more into it once we talk about the recovery stuff. But yeah, lots of good character-based humor, and Tanjiro even gets some more I am the hard-working boy type of humor, just working so hard to the point of genuine comedy. It was really funny, and even the animation itself reflected the more zany sense of humor this episode had. We get a lot of more slides instead of characters walking. We get a lot of the simple movement, sort of left right type of movement, and a lot of repeat frames meant to be zany and fun. And I'm sure it was helpful to have this week's episode, since it would require a little less, I don't want to say effort, but a little less intense animation, intense time dedicated to the animation of the episode, since a lot of it does come across as sort of more gag-friendly animation, kind of a little bit more simpler than normal, and I think it really helps to sell the comedy all the more, seeing the animation look like this. That is, however, all I really have to say on the comedy. I wish I had more to say, but it's kind of hard to talk about comedy. It's sort of subjective, so a lot of people will either find this week's episode really funny, like I did, or find it really annoying, like I'm sure a couple people did. But with that said, I want to quickly talk about the recovery, and then we'll get into the rooftop talk, which is probably the big moment of the episode, but I want to save that for last. First of all, I want to talk about the recovery. The crew is still in pretty rough shape, though Tanjiro seems to be the most on the rebound. He seems to be the one who's doing he's recovering the quickest and is the most active in his recovery, actually going out of his way to try to do the rehabilitation stuff, to try to practice his total concentration breathing technique, which we will get into. And just, he's going above and beyond to try to fix himself so that he can get back out there, so that he can find Muzan and his cronies. And yeah, he just wants to get back out into the fray. He wants to go whoop some demon tail. And whereas Zenitsu is still just, they specifically say that Zenitsu is the one in the roughest shape, since his arms and legs are still healing. And he still has the potential to backslide if he's not careful and doesn't continue to drink the medicine that they're giving him, even though he refuses, because apparently it tastes gross, even though Tanjiro says it tastes just fine. And he even calls favoritism, which I thought was pretty funny. And Inosuke's injuries seem not only physical, but emotional. Like, it really does seem like this beatdown sort of changed Inosuke in a way. Like, it wasn't just his throat that needed fixing and healing, it was also his ego. Like, it really did, I think, do a number on him to have to be rescued and rely on Tanjiro and just be that close to death. It probably did a number on his ego a little bit. And we do see a more tempered Inosuke in this week's episode, I felt anyway. And we even get to see our boy Murata. I asked last week what had happened to Murata, and rightfully so, some people mentioned on Twitter that, like, most likely he probably just went back into active duty, since he wasn't really injured too badly anyway. Like, he was roughed up, but he wasn't anywhere near as bad as the trio was. But it's nice to see Murata actually, like, meet Zenitsu, since he never actually met Zenitsu, and kind of reaffirm that, like, yeah, he's around, he's going to be doing his own thing, but he is around, he is still friendly with the group. I would have liked to have seen more Murata, like maybe have Murata stick around, but Shinobu scared the ever-living hell out of him and he ran away. And it seems like Murata basically just ran away with, or not ran away, rather, but he walked away from the whole forest situation with, it looked like a couple broken fingers. Some of his fingers were wrapped up, so I think maybe he just broke a couple fingers, and kind of a bruised ego. He did have to explain himself to the Hashira, who were pretty annoyed with the current class of Demon Slayer. They seem sort of let down by their abilities, and it definitely hurt the man's ego, and I don't blame him. The Hashira did say last week as well that they're not really impressed with the current crop of Demon Slayers. And I don't feel I can rightfully blame Murata. I don't think he's any better or worse than I would be personally. In fact, I think he's 10 times better than I would be. And I'm sure he's not as strong as Zenitsu, Inosuke, or Tanjiro, but he is trying. I don't necessarily agree with the Hashira that them saying, like, oh, they're weak-willed, blah, blah, blah. I feel like you have to some degree, have a strong will to be a Demon Slayer, to put yourself in danger. I don't think they're giving my boy Murata enough credit, but Murata is admittedly kind of scared of the Hashira, so I get where they're coming from to an extent. Sorry for that mini rant on defending my boy Murata. But as I could see from Twitter, it seems a lot of people like Murata as well, so I'm not alone in that. He's not like a super deep character. We don't know a whole lot about him other than he has a cool character design and he gets along really well with Tanjiro. But yeah, I don't know. He's a good boy. Want to see more from him. Enjoy his presence on the show. That's all I have to say, I guess. And finally, let's go ahead and dig into this a little bit. We gotta talk about that rooftop talk, that rooftop conversation between Shinobu and Tanjiro. And what I loved about this is that Shinobu sees that Tanjiro is not only trustworthy, but has a beautiful soul. That made me happy. That Shinobu's just like, no, you know what? You're a good kid. You're a good boy. You're a good, hard-working boy, and I see that. And I'm like, yeah, that's my boy. That's my boy Tanjiro. He's a good lad. And Shinobu, she's a top-tier waifu. So the fact that the waifu sees the good in the boy makes me happy. I don't ship it. I saw that on Twitter, and I was like, no. But I do, like, I really don't ship it. But I do like that these two are tight, and that they have this, like, cool bond where she sees in Tanjiro, and this broke my heart, but she sees in Tanjiro that same beautiful goodness that was in her sister, who she lost to demons, which explains quite a bit about Shinobu. And Tanjiro sees the calm demeanor as a front to the anger inside Shinobu, because as Tanjiro points out, that he got a scent of anger off of her, which surprised me because that's not the character I thought Shinobu was. Only to find out that she says, well, to quote Bruce Banner, I'm always angry. She's always angry. And that was a surprise. Turns out my waifu is a feisty one. No, but seriously, it turns out that Shinobu harbors a lot of resentment towards the other demons, as I'm sure most of the Hashira must have some sort of reason to hate them as much as they do. And while Shinobu's could be argued as sort of basic, they killed her sister, the fact that the sister treated the demons in the same sort of vein that Tanjiro does, with this sort of air of sympathy about them when they have to strike them down, she saw that and was totally baffled by that. but she wanted to in some way honor her sister's wishes, as well as the fact that her sister wanted her to keep the smile that she so enjoyed. So it's why Shinobu has this sort of grace and kind demeanor to her, because it's what her sister wanted her to have. That got me. I don't know why that got me, but that really got me. Also, I'm very concerned, since the end of that conversation has Shinobu say that she can rest easy, knowing that Tanjiro can fulfill the dream that she was trying to set out to do for her sister. What do you mean rest easy, my girl? Is something wrong? Should I be aware of something? I'm a little concerned because I really like Shinobu and want to see more of her. I hope that wasn't like a death flag, but I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But with that said, everybody, I'm going to wrap up today's video here and give this week a strong grade of B. It was a very, surprisingly funny episode and very chill. I really enjoyed this week. But with that said, I'm going to wrap up today's video. But before I do, as always, I have to give a big shout out to the good folks over on Patreon, namely those in the Earl Grey tier: Calvin Atkinson, Crowbar of Irony, Dominic, Urza, Ginkotaku, No for Nothing, Maria Teresa, Mirth Mouser, Nye, Omner Garamond, Cell, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Somastan, Steven, Tristan, and Verdon. Thank you guys so much for your continued support over on Patreon. It is super appreciated. And if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then by all means go ahead and check out the first link in the description to check out our Patreon page and see all the cool rewards you can get over there, as well as access to our Patreon exclusive Discord. But on that note, everybody, that is going to be a video. So I hope you all enjoyed today's video. And if you did, you've probably been on the internet long enough to know what to do already, so I ain't going to tell you, but I will say that it is appreciated. And if you're feeling stressed out today, you go have yourself a warm cup of tea. And I will talk to you all again real soon.